Phoenix Suns have named their 5 finalists for their head coaching position. And I want to be able to dive somewhat deep into each of these guys. So the list is Sean Sweeney, who you could see in your lower corner here, and Chris Quinn, Jordan Ott, my guy Johnny Bryant, and then Dave Bliss. And that leads me to believe, I have to be honest with you guys. A couple of weeks ago, I said you have to go Chris Quinn for the Phoenix Suns' next head coach. And that was with the fact that it looked like Johnny Bryant was out of the running. And now I have a new favorite once again. Started off as Johnny Bryant, looked like he wasn't going to be in the running, went over to Chris Quinn. I got to go back to my guy Johnny Bryant. This Phoenix Suns team needs someone who was a former player, although not in the NBA, did play college basketball. Someone that relates to the players. Someone that obviously, can relate to Devin Booker. And one of the reasons why I really love Johnny Bryant is the fact that he was Kenny Atkinson's lead assistant. And a couple of seasons ago, when the Phoenix Suns let go of Monty Williams, my number one candidate was Kenny Atkinson. Kenny Atkinson has had a plethora of success everywhere he's went. Golden State Warriors assistant coach, Brooklyn Nets head coach. That was the team with Kyrie and Kevin Durant. And then he goes over to the Cleveland Cavaliers and immediately is the 1 seed. A guy that I think is an incredibly underrated head coach is Kenny Atkinson. And then people go over and blame Kenny. Well, they lost to the Pacers. Yeah, well, guess what? The Pacers are about to go to the NBA Finals. Also, Darius Garland was injured. DeAndre Hunter was injured. That team was pretty beat up. They're completely healthy. I do think that they would beat the Indiana Pacers. But they didn't. And forget any of that. If Kenny Atkinson trusts Johnny Bryant to where if something happens, Kenny Atkinson gets thrown out of a game, Kenny Atkinson gets injured, can't stand on the sidelines, and the new head coach is Johnny Bryant, he trusts him to run his ship, then I trust Johnny Bryant. A player, or this is also someone who has been said by Chris Haynes before and other people that people around the league have seen him grow and believe that he will be one of the next great head coaches. That's from Chris Haynes' mouth. That's not from my mouth. And so I will be a little disappointed if he's not the guy for the Phoenix Suns. But the two options and the two guys I really want to focus on, because we lean a lot on reporting on this show, not my own reporting, obviously other people's reporting, it's pretty simple as this. Sean Sweeney, the Dallas Mavericks lead assistant head coach, a defensive-minded guy, which I don't necessarily love. According to John Gambadoro, those would be his two quote-unquote favorites, the leans for the job. And John does a incredibly good job with reporting, so I don't want to waste my time with the other guys. It feels like Dave Bliss as one of the other head coaching candidates and Jordan Ott are just two guys who did really well in their interview process and made it all the way to here. Dave Bliss, not the lead assistant for the Thunder, and of course, Jordan Ott, not the lead assistant for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And it would be really hard for me to believe Jordan Ott is going to get the job over Johnny Bryant. Given the fact that Johnny Bryant is the lead assistant for the Cleveland Cavaliers, Jordan Ott, who is also assistant of the Cleveland Cavaliers, but isn't a higher assistant than Johnny Bryant. That would just be a weird mental gymnastics to hire that guy who's clearly more unqualified than Johnny Bryant. So I don't believe Jordan Ott has a real case for this job, and I don't think you should feel that either. I think Jordan Ott is pretty firmly out of the picture. But let's talk about Sean Sweeney and Chris Quinn. Let's say that these two guys are the final two candidates for the Phoenix Suns head coaching search, and it looks like, based on the reporting, these two guys are the strongest candidates. Sean Sweeney, a defensive-first guy from the Dallas Mavericks, a highly regarded assistant coach and someone that obviously has got a lot of respect in the NBA, But let's talk about what he's best at. Defense. He's a defensive-minded guy. And the one thing that would get a lot of Suns fans excited for that is pretty firmly this. In 2022, he was one of the lead architects for that Dallas Mavericks team. With Jalen Brunson, with Luka Doncic, with Maxi Kleber. That team is the same team that beat the Phoenix Suns in the second round of the semifinals. And at first, I wasn't really into the idea of hiring Sean Sweeney. But if they went that direction, I think I'd be okay with it. You think back to that 2022 team where Sean Sweeney and Jason Kidd just out-schemed the Phoenix Suns. Do you remember what he did to Devin Booker? He swarmed him. 2-3 guys. He made Chris Paul a jump shooter. And the Suns had no answer for it. He knew Chris Paul would not shoot the 3-ball. He knew Devin Booker has limitations because of his physical stature, so they swarmed him. And it was kind of interesting to see his ability to take out the star player on a team and then make Chris Paul win the series with an adjustment of a team that was down 2-0 in a series. Sean Sweeney has really grown on me as a potential head coaching hire. And I got to be honest with you. If Johnny Bryant, Sean Sweeney, or Chris Quinn get the job, I'll be happy with any of them. If I was ranking them, I'd go Johnny Bryant, Chris Quinn, Sean Sweeney. But they're all pretty close. And maybe one of those guys' personality just fits better with Devin Booker. So I don't want to make these rankings so black and white. Jordan Ott, Dave Bliss, again, I can kind of push them to the side, I think. And then with Chris Quinn, one of the things that would worry me about him, because I've talked about how much I do like Chris Quinn, and here are the positives, just really quickly. Heat culture, been there for a decade plus, worked his way up from the lowest guy in the coaching room to now he's the lead assistant under Eric Spoelstra, who is an elite level head coach in the NBA. The only thing that would worry me is why did it take so long? Why did it take 11 years for Chris Quinn to get his own shot? Why is he taking this job? If he's such a highly regarded assistant coach, why didn't he get the job last year for the Lakers? Why'd they take J.J. Redick? Or same with the Phoenix Suns. Why does he want the Phoenix Suns? This is kind of a mess of a franchise. Why would Chris Quinn put all of his 11-year stock of being in the Miami Heat system, take the Suns job? So that's the only thing that worries me. It's not necessarily anything bad for Chris Quinn, but it's like the pretty girl and you know you're an ugly dude and you're like, why do you want me? Something's got to be up, a screw loose up here. Maybe that's the case for Chris Quinn. That's the very small negative for Chris Quinn. And the small negative for Sean Sweeney is pretty simply, he's a defensive guy. I don't know if that meshes with your best player, that being Devin Booker. Maybe that leads to them moving on from Booker one day because he's not a good defender. Maybe he steps it up. Maybe he goes back to being that capable defender he was back in 2022 if you surround him around the right pieces. And then Chris Quinn, he checks a lot of boxes. Heat culture, bring that culture to Phoenix. Former player, young. This could be your next head coach for the next 20 years, both of these guys. So, again, if we're ranking these guys, Johnny Bryant, Chris Quinn, Sean Sweeney, probably Jordan Ott, Dave Bliss. That's where I would go from those 5 finalists for the Phoenix Suns job. And I got to be honest with you guys. You guys have to be too. I have went after this team, and you know I have. I have went after this team ad nauseum. I got to be honest. Suns did a pretty good job in this coaching search. If this is their 5 finalists, sure, maybe Dave Bliss and Jordan Ott you don't love. But from all reporting, it doesn't look like they're taking those 2 guys seriously. The Suns did a pretty good job. Left no stone unturned. grabbed all the top assistants. This is a great place to be to hire a new head coach because no one else out there has got a head coaching vacancy. So whoever the Suns go with, it's going to be a good hire. And especially if it is out of these top three, Johnny Bryant, Chris Quinn, Sean Sweeney, it's a really good place to be. So credit to Matt Ishbia, the rare credit to Brian Gregory for casting a wide net and getting what I presume to be a very good head coach out of those top three. And even the bottom two, who I would be a little disappointed if they picked one of those two guys over the other three guys. But I got to be honest with you. It's a pretty good job well done in terms of just the candidacy list for the finalists for the Suns head coaching job. So I'm excited to see who they're going to hire. And it sounds like they'll have a hire early next week is what has been reported out there.